Jarrick Bernard-Converse is coming to Baton Rouge. He is a Shreveport native from Evangel up there in Hester Country in Shreveport. Started 46 straight games for Oklahoma State, was first team All Big 12 last season, 6'1", 200 pounds, and he becomes really probably the best corner on your roster from Jump Street. That's a need that LSU had in the worst way as of 3 weeks ago. They've kind of shorted up a little bit. This is as big an ad, I think, as they've gotten in the transfer portal.
Yeah, this is exactly what you need. You talk about just being active in the transfer portal. It wouldn't be great if you signed 5 punters or something like that. You're getting positions of need, and I think that's exactly a guy that has a lot of experience playing college football, especially being an all Big 12 player. This is exactly something that LSU football teams needed. I'm glad to see Coach Kelly and the rest of the staff continue to find these guys with Louisiana ties, and it seems like that's their beck and call to get these guys coming home. And I think he's definitely a plug-and-play guy. I know you don't want to gift anyone any starting jobs around here, but I'm pretty sure he'll probably be starting for the Tigers next season.
We talked about how the defensive front now is really shored up. It's got some experience, a lot of talent. They've added a little bit of influence from the transfer portal. We're sure kind of looking around at linebacker, but its secondary was barren after the bowl game, and now you kind of look up, and here's what you've got to work with in the secondary. You add Jarrick Bernard-Converse today, who was an all Big 12 player, Mekhi Garner, who was a starter for Louisiana Lafayette, Greg Brooks is a nickelback who started for Arkansas, so all three of those guys very much starting experience at the college level. Sage Ryan is a guy you think can play in the nickel down low. Demarius McGee is a freshman who didn't play very much for you last year, but is still on the roster. Joe Fuchsia, who looks like he's going to be a safety for you. Jay Ward has announced he's coming back. You've got Major Burns. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys I've listed. Not nearly enough to feel great about it, but when you were at about 2 or 3 after the bowl game, this certainly looks a little bit better.
Yeah, it looks way better. Now you got some guys you can move and plug and play. Now guys who are, to me, playing out of position last year, a guy like Sage Ryan who can play nickel, I think he'll be better suited at a safety position, especially a box safety. And now you can move some things around. I think they're going to get a couple guys in this freshman class, but I don't think they're done in this transfer portal. I think you definitely probably want to sign a couple more defensive backs just so you can have numbers-wise, if anyone goes down, you can feel comfortable with putting guys in there that can play at the college level. So it's good right now, but I think it still has potential to be great.
Yeah, great's probably strong for me at this point. But look, you've got what's important is you've got guys who have started and have started in the big time. I mean, when you look at Bernard-Converse being a starter in the Big 12, and you look at Greg Brooks being a starter in the SEC, you add those two guys to Sage Ryan, who's played a lot, Jay Ward, who's played a lot, and Major Burns, who's played a lot, and then Mekhi Garner, who was pretty highly thought of coming out of Louisiana Lafayette. And you mentioned the high school signing class, Laterris Welsh is going to come in as a 6'1", 185-pound 4-star player. Jordan Allen is kind of a corner safety hybrid, a 3-star player they brought in. That gets your numbers up north of 10. So it's a daunting task, or it was 3 weeks ago, to look at this and go, we don't have anybody that can play in the secondary. And now they've kind of supplemented that. Again, I think great, maybe a little bit of a stretch, but certainly serviceable to this point. And now I can kind of breathe a little bit easy when looking at this roster that was just totally gutted, and I can basically come up with the starting 22 on both sides that doesn't include some sort of drastic reach of somebody you've got to have. You don't have to have some 3-star freshman come in and be your bell cow. You don't have to have somebody coming back from a gruesome injury to return, or a player who's never played before. Like, you don't have any of those situations. You've got guys who have proven they can play college football, have started in Power 5 conferences, who have started for you in the case of Jay Ward and Major Burns. Sage Ryan has started a couple games for you. It feels a little bit better.
Yeah, it definitely feels better. And a lot of those guys you definitely had no idea they would probably be part of this football team 3 weeks ago, like you said. But now you got guys who we've seen play college at the college level, probably not, SEC first-team guys or, first-team All-American guys, but guys who are definitely serviceable, guys who can definitely come help this defense out, especially if you got a defensive line like we have that's going to be able to get after the passer. Now you got guys, that can help those guys on the back end out, and if your pass rush is getting after the quarterback, it's going to make their jobs a heck of a lot easier.
Where are you at linebacker?
Love that we got Baskerville back. Past that, it's really not much to point to. I know you got Jones coming back. I think that's probably the biggest position of need.
Greg Penn.
Yeah.
Hasn't played much. West Weeks you add in the transfer portal. You're kind of looking at Harold Perkins. Is that where you are?
Yeah, I think it's time to get a little Harold. I know he's rumored to come into Baton Rouge this weekend, which I'm loving to hear. But, yeah, he's definitely a guy I feel like just watching his highlights, especially from his senior season, he's a great cover guy. That's something I think this team's definitely going to need. I know Baskerville is a great tackler, but I'm sure coverage is probably not his strongest suit. So if you do get a guy like Harold Perkins, he's going to have a great opportunity to start in the middle of that defense next season.
So, again, as you look at the defense, we've talked about this for about 3 weeks now about how the front looks very, very good. I think you start with a base of Joseph Evans, Jaquelin Roy, Mason Smith, Jacobian Guillory. You add in from the transfer portal an all-SEC freshman player from Missouri and Mekhi Wingo, and you feel pretty good about what you've got on the outside with Ali Gay deciding to come back. You've got B.J. Ojolari there, and then we've run through the secondary. All of a sudden, a unit that looked to be – I mean, I was considering that this could be just a disaster of a defense. That was a real concern. The offense, because of the skill position players they had, I felt okay about if they could plug some holes in the offensive line, which we felt – that was the first spot where you knew they were going to go to the transfer portal and do some work was offensive line, and those names kind of materialized pretty quickly, and then all of a sudden they came to fruition. You added Tremont Shorts, you added Miles Frazier, and that was something that you knew was coming early. It took a little bit more time for the names to materialize on the back end and the secondary. So now as I look at it, I think this should be a serviceable defense for that, because you imagine that Brian Kelly is going to put together an organization that is pretty stable and pretty efficient. He's done that everywhere. The concern was, what can he do in 3 months to turn this thing into a functional football roster after what we just watched in Houston? And he's probably exceeded my expectations there. Now, granted, my expectations were very low for this, because I have not seen the LSU football roster in this kind of shape really since the 90s. And it was right there, and all of a sudden he has shored this thing up with, these are not 5-star recruits. These are not guys that are transferring that were starters at Bama. I mean, I realize Bama's getting a 5-star running back from Georgia Tech. They're getting 5-star and Eli Ricks going over from LSU. Like, that's the waters that they're swimming in, and he certainly didn't do that. But he's gotten some guys who can at least go out there and have proven they can play, and that gives me some comfort about this coming season, even though I think expectations will be relatively low in Baton Rouge. And then you ramp things up as you get your feet on the ground. But I think if you were anybody who was considering that what you watched in Houston, for him to turn around and go 11-1, win the West, and get into the playoff next year, that's a little bit more than I was planning on. But he's quelled some of my some deep fears about what was coming up in this coming football season.
Yeah, I see we're both pulling back on the sunshine and rainbows from last preseason. But
we had like 10 players in the Texas Bowl.
Yeah.
What am I supposed to say?
Yeah, we had a receiver playing quarterback. Like what are we doing? But I think for me, going back to the Coach Kelly hire, that was the number one, I think, call to order was getting butts in those seats in that team meeting room. Just look at it. I think we were counting, especially around the bowl game when you got the draft guys leaving, transfer portal guys leaving, seniors leaving. The scholarship numbers were definitely well below 50, and that's no place you want to be for a Division I football program in the SEC when you've had a program that's second most in national championship. It's just, I know the people in Baton Rouge, that's what they expect year in and year out. They want you to beat Bama. They want you to be competitive. They show up to Tiger Stadium. They want you to win games. That was going to be very daunting if you had 50 scholarship guys on that roster. So I think just watching how they've attacked this portal is definitely great news for me. Seeing, and I don't think their work is done. They're going to continue. I think they're going to get very close to that 32 number if they don't get there. I know a lot of people are saying they might not reach it, but the way things are going now, I think that's very feasible.
Well, certainly you want as many guys who you're going to count on in the fall to show up in the spring and go through workouts. Like, you want that. But the reality of the situation is there's going to be a lot of guys that are going to transfer after spring ball. You see the depth chart shaking out in spring ball, and you're not where you want to be, they're going to be gone. Like, that's what we've created here. And so you don't have to make sure you filled every single roster spot going into spring, but you have to be aware that you're probably going to lose some people after spring, and you're going to have to bring some guys in during spring. You've created a calendar of never-ending roster shuffling. You're going to have you got guys transferring out before bowl games. You're going to have guys transferring out after spring. It's just the way that it's going to go. So The good news for LSU is that today is a good day in the transfer portal as they get the addition of Jarrick Bernard-Converse, a all Big 12 cornerback from Oklahoma State from Shreveport, who is headed to Baton Rouge.
Thanks so much for watching Hunt Hill on YouTube.
Now do us a favor, hit the red subscribe button below and throw us a like. We'll see you next time.